All right, let's dive into something that is absolutely essential for any serious JavaScript developer: promise combinators. Seriously, whether you're building a real-world app or you're just trying to nail that next tech interview, you've got to know this stuff. So, let's get right into it.
And this, right here, this is the whole problem in a nutshell. I mean, you probably feel pretty good about Promise.all, right? But what about all-settled, or race, or any? That little gap in your knowledge, that's exactly what can trip you up on a tough bug or, yeah, in an interview. By the time we're done here, that gap is going to be completely closed.
So, first up, let's tackle the all combinators. These are your go-to tools for a super common situation, when your app just has to wait for a bunch of different things to finish before it can move on.
Okay, so here's the main difference, laid out plain and simple. Think of Promise.all as the strict one. It's an all-or-nothing kind of deal. If even one little thing goes wrong, the whole operation is a bust. But then you have Promise.all.Settled. It's way more forgiving. It just waits for everything to finish, whether it succeeded or failed, and then it gives you a nice report on how each one did. It's all about how they handle failure.
So let's really break down Promise.all. You give it a list of promises, and it kicks them all off at the same time. But, and this is the big catch, the second that one of those promises fails, the entire Promise.all just throws its hands up and rejects immediately. It doesn't even wait to see what happens with the others. It's a high-stakes, all-or-nothing game for sure. And here's a textbook example. You know, you're trying to load a dashboard. To even show the page, you need the user data, you need their orders, and you need the product info. Promise.all is perfect because it fetches all of that at once, which is way more efficient. But you see the trade-off, right? If that getProducts API call fails for whatever reason, the whole thing comes crashing down.
So the takeaway here is really, really simple. You should only reach for Promise.all when every single piece of data is absolutely mandatory. If one failure means the whole feature is broken anyway, then yeah, Promise.all is exactly what you need. Okay, now let's talk about its more resilient sibling, Promise.all.Settled. It also runs a bunch of promises in parallel, but its whole philosophy is different. It patiently waits for every single one to finish, to settle. And here's the kicker: it never rejects. Instead, it just comes back with a list of outcomes, telling you which ones made it and which ones didn't.
This is just the perfect scenario for all-settled. Imagine you're loading a page. The user's profile, that's critical, but the ads and the analytics data, they're kind of optional. You don't want the whole page to show an error just because your ad server timed out, right? Well, all-settled handles this beautifully. It tries to get everything, and even if the ads fail, you still get the profile data and can render the most important part of the page.
And that makes it the absolute best tool for dashboards or any complex UI where some widgets are just nice-to-haves. You can try to load the whole shebang and then just gracefully hide the components that failed, all without destroying the entire user experience.
Okay, so we've totally covered waiting for all the promises. But what if you don't care about all of them? What if you just need the first one that finishes? Well, that's where our next couple of combinators come into play, and these guys are all about speed.
Now, these two look similar, but there's a really important difference. Promise.race is literally just a race to the finish line. It doesn't care if the winner is a success or a failure. First one to settle wins. Promise.any, though, is a bit pickier. It's specifically looking for the first successful result. It'll just ignore any failures and keep waiting until something actually works.
So yeah, with Promise.race, it really is just a mad dash to the end. Whichever promise gets there first, whether it's holding a value or an error message, that's the one that decides the outcome for the whole group. If the fastest one rejects, Promise.race rejects. If it succeeds, Promise.race succeeds. Simple as that.
And here we have it, the absolute classic must-know use case for Promise.race, creating a timeout. What you do is you race your actual network request against the simple timer promise. If your API call takes too long, that timer is going to win the race by rejecting first. It's an incredibly powerful way to stop your app from just hanging forever waiting on a slow network.
This makes it a total rock star for two key jobs: adding timeouts, like we just saw, and racing multiple redundant servers against each other to see which one responds the fastest. You get to give your user the absolute quickest experience possible.
All right, now for the optimist of the bunch, Promise.any. It's a bit like race, but it's playing a different game. It's looking for a winner. It will patiently ignore any promises that fail, just waiting, until one of them finally comes through with a successful result. It only gives up and rejects if every single promise you gave it ends up failing.
Now this is where Promise.any really shines.
Imagine you've got some critical piece of data, and it's available on 3 different backup servers for redundancy. You can use Promise.any to ask all of them for the data at once. The moment the first server gets back to you with the goods, you're done. You've got your data and can move on. It doesn't even matter if the other 2 servers are slow or completely offline.
So when it comes down to it, Promise.any is just a fantastic tool for building really robust, high-availability systems. It's all about using redundancy to make sure your app stays up and running even when some of its parts are failing.
Okay, we've been through all 4 of them. We've covered a lot of ground. So now, let's do a quick fire round just to lock all this new knowledge in and make sure it sticks. This table right here is your ultimate cheat sheet. You can see it all side by side. Promise.all, that's your all succeed or fail fast. All settled, it just waits for all, no matter what. Race is all about that first settled promise, win or lose. And any, it's on the hunt for the first success. This is what you'll want to remember. All right, interview blitz time, you ready? What's the best combiner for a dashboard with some optional parts? That's Promise.allSettled. When Promise.any fails because everything failed, what kind of error do you get? You get an aggregate error, which is cool because it wraps up all the individual failure reasons. Now for a tricky one. Does Promise.all actually cancel the other promises when one fails? Nope, it just stops waiting. Those other network requests might still be chugging along in the background. Nailing little details like that is what makes you look like a pro.
Look, if you forget everything else we talked about today, just remember this next part. It's one simple line that perfectly captures the whole story.
Let's just say it one more time because it's that good. Promise.all is strict. All settled is safe. Race is fast. And any is smart. Honestly, if you can just burn that little mantra into your brain, you'll know exactly which tool to grab for the job every single time. And that about wraps it up. So I'm going to leave you with this one question. Think about the projects you're working on right now. Where are you dealing with a bunch of async stuff? And which one of these combinators could you use right now to make that code faster, safer, or just plain better? Give it some thought. Happy coding!